All right, you guys, welcome back. Welcome back.
Woo.
Welcome back to the same old place that you
George, who
No,
sings?
the thing.
Who sings that song?
I don't know, but it's Welcome Back, Carter.
Okay, well let's keep it that way. Okay.
Oh, that's
messed up.
That's jacked up. Welcome back, you guys, to American Lunchbox Podcast.
Woo!
Welcome back, you guys. Thank you so much for listening. I forgot to have my tea this morning, so my voice was a little chalky. But I bring the heat when it comes to the vocals. I bring the heat, but y'all ain't ready for it. But anyway, welcome back. Today is a good day. We're so glad that you guys decided to spend time with us. If you guys don't know, you're listening to American Lunchbox Podcast, the podcast where there are three guys, right, who have been knowing each other for some time. Over 10 years, we've worked together on different projects. We were a part basically of the entertainment business. And during this time of COVID, we decided, you know what, we missed each other. We liked going bowling, we liked having lunch, but we couldn't do anything. So we had all these long text messages, and I said, why don't we do a podcast? And everybody agreed. And this is the American Lunchbox Podcast. Welcome, guys.
Ooh,
thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me, George.
Yeah, so let me introduce the gang. We on this side here we have Chris.
Hello, how are you?
And over here we have Tim.
Greetings and salutations.
Thank you so much, guys, for showing up. For you guys who are listening for the first time, thank you for listening. Those of you all who come back, thank you for listening to us again. All right. Hit the subscribe button. And for those of you all, go over to the YouTube station and hit the subscribe for us as well. Become a part of the Lunchbox crew. We appreciate you, and thank you so much for listening. Okay, guys, enough of the preliminaries. How was your week this week? What's going on with you, Chris? How's everything going with you, brother?
Yeah, very good. I've been in hardcore exercise mode, trying to lose these lbs so that I don't die of the COVID, if you know what I
mean. Look at you. Nice. That's that Queens coming out. Oh, okay. So you look great, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah. You look like you lost about 10 pounds. Could be water weight, though.
Maybe. I've been trying to wake up real early and go hiking. And part of the reason for that is that the hiking trail's kind of tight, so I want to get off the mountain before too many people get up on it. And part of that is that I realized the non-social, sunglasses on, bad attitude, hungover LA crowd doesn't wake up until about 8 or 9 a.m.
True that.
So if I could get in there and out real early, everyone's friendly. They all say hello, and I kind of like that.
Wow,
nice.
That sounds like Southern hospitality there. We're not used to that here in LA. That's awesome. What about you, Tim? What's going on with you, brother?
Oh, a little bit of the same. As far as like trying to lose some weight and get back into shape, I've rediscovered. I've started recently discovering VR. And so I've started working out with some VR apps, virtual reality.
Tell us, so for those who don't know what VR is, educate the podcast and YouTube world about what VR is and how that works.
Sure. VR stands for virtual reality. Basically, you put on these 3D goggles over your head, and it's a 360-degree view, very encompassing. You get engulfed into this world, and it's very cool. There's no real way to describe it until you're actually into it. But there's lots of really cool apps for it for working out. You have things like Beat Saber. This one app that I'm into is called Supernatural, where basically you're in these really weird exotic locations and you're just trying to hit orbs, and you're flaring your arms around, and you're doing squats, you're doing all kinds of things, and it just makes workout kind of fun. So I'm digging it. And there's also a virtual bowling that I've really gotten into. So it's like, I mean, you're doing squats and lunges, which is really great, and it's really good for you. Right. So hey, whatever gets you out the door, whatever gets you sweating, hey, I'm all for it. So yeah, last night I was trying to with the VR app, the VR system that I have. It's got its own little store infrastructure with available games that are available natively for it, but there's also the availability of expanding the store and expanding the list of titles that are available through what's called Steam VR, which is just basically a bunch of PC games that you can download. And I was trying to get my system to play along nicely with that. And Unfortunately, I got it to work, but you really need a killer gaming PC to take advantage of it. So it's like it was kind of hit or miss. I may not be downloading the latest and greatest games. Me and Chris were talking off camera. We're talking about what was it, Half-Life Alyx, and that's like the most graphic intensive game that you could probably play right now. And I don't know. It's a $60 game. I don't know whether or not I want to.
Tim, you're boring the shit out of me.
All right,
Stop.
fine.
Yeah.
All right,
stop.
It does,
fuck,
well,
man.
It does show
my
you
brain. You're killing my brain.
You.
I don't have any idea what you're talking. That sounds like a whole podcast in itself.
Right?
It's like, what
Can
the
I
hell
say
are
real
you
quick?
talking about?
I don't know if I'll ever get the chance to say this again, but even though I've been a gamer, I've been very hesitant and avoidant of VR because even if I was in my house alone with all the doors locked, I'd still be afraid that with those goggles on, someone would come pick my pocket or cut my throat.
Even in your own home.
Yeah.
That is paranoia at its best. I mean, okay, well, listen,
it's just too addicting. It's just hours could pass in there.
Absolutely.
Right. It's a good time waster, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, with you guys doing that, Tim, that's great. You know, I've been, kind of bunkered down over here for the last few days. You know, it just seems like I saw you guys 2 days ago. Which I did because was the last podcast we did. It was 2 days ago because of all of our technical difficulties. Go back over there and see episode 7, guys, if you want to check that out. But this is episode 8, by the way. So the last couple of days, it's Labor Day. It's been Labor Day. I did have a day off, but I didn't take the day off. I worked through. I'm in the process right now of putting together some business plans for a couple of new ventures that I'm going to be entering in October. So I've been working around the clock, believe it or not, but enjoying myself in the process. I don't have any qualms. I don't have any problems. I've really enjoyed myself. But during this time over the weekend, we've, even keeping up with this, there's been a lot going on in the news, and I don't know if you guys have been aware of this thing with your president. In regards to the whole military conversations that he's been having. Now, hold on for a second. Before you guys jump, whoa, don't shoot. Before you guys jump all over me about this, we know already that your president has a history of, number one, ducking the Dodge, claiming, of course, that, he...
Bone spurs.
There you go. I mean, your president also, now, from what I understand, he's calling people losers. Tim, what the hell is going on with your president, man?
Well, first of all, he is your president too. He's my president too.
Oh, hold on.
He's our president. Regardless of whether you voted for him or not, he technically is our president.
Let me explain that statement.
Okay, go for it.
Somehow I knew you were going to take offense to that. Or correct.
I don't take offense. I had to.
Well, hold on. Let me explain to you how that works. Right. When you are a parent and you have a child, when the child does something bad, it's their children.
Right.
It's their child. Of course, it's my kid too. Of course. But you say to your husband or wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever, you say, get your child. Your child is acting up. You see? So when I say your president, I know he's my president too. But right now, he's pissing me off. So now he's your president, and you're going to tell me about him. So tell me about your president.
All right, fine. I didn't vote. I didn't vote for the guy, but hey, But yeah, I'm not one to really, read the news a lot. I do what I have to do for the podcast and everything, try to stay informed. But this one, I did a lot of reading about it because it really pissed me off. I was like, this is horrible. I'm actually a veteran myself. I don't really talk about it too much. I mean, I did.
Well, thank you for your service, Tim. Thank you for your service.
No problem. I mean, I'm not a overly patriotic person. I don't wave the flag. I don't go to, I don't know. I don't join the Veterans of Foreign War Association or anything like that. I did my time. I served with honor, and it was 20 years ago, and I did what I had to do. But in this particular case, I mean, when he sat there and he called people that have served losers and for serving, it's like, yeah, that's a big offense. I mean, so I serve with some of the best people ever. They were awesome people, and they were definitely not losers. I don't consider myself a loser for joining and doing my time. The military offers a lot of good opportunities for a lot of people. I got a lot of good training out of it. I got money for money to go to college. It's actually a really good opportunity, a great way to serve your country. So I don't have any problem with that. And it's for Trump to come in there. And by the way, I I know there's a thing about giving somebody the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he could have, if he was the least bit more eloquent, he could have sat there and kind of covered himself, saying, "Oh yeah, I said that, but it was taken out of context." With Trump, you know he said it. I mean, there's just I hate to jump to conclusions like this, but with this guy, he has such a track record of talking shit. You know he said it. You know, it's not that it was taken out of context. You know he said this stuff. You know, I mean, he sat there, he said the same thing about John McCain. He said, "Oh, I prefer people that don't get caught." He's had just a history of a bad relationship with the military. So yeah, I 100% believe that he said these things, and it speaks volumes about his character, about how he doesn't know what government is supposed to do, and what services it can provide. He doesn't realize that government is a service. It's not a business. It's a service. And, you know, when he sits there and he badmouths, you know, the ultimate service, people that have made the ultimate sacrifice, when he sits there and says, "Oh, these guys were losers," or "I don't get it for, you know, what's in it for them." It's like, it's not what's in it for them. They're doing it because it's a duty. You know, when people talk about the greatest generation, you're going to tell me that everybody who died in World War II trying to liberate the world was a loser. It's like, you know what? I do agree with him. He doesn't get it. And that's a big problem for me.
Well, I mean, Chris, I saw over, you know, in podcast land, you don't have an opportunity. Run over and subscribe to our YouTube station, because you can see the reactions. And I see some mixed reactions from Chris. I see a lot of yes. I see a lot of no. I see a lot of "what the hell are you talking about" reactions. But I mean, what are your feelings about this, Chris? Tell me. What say ye?
I'm not going to go against Tim or his instincts on this. But what I will say is that regardless of how verified the claim is, or regardless of how what the context of the claim was, is that over and over with Trump, he is the Joker from The Dark Knight. He's providing you a devil's choice. Devil's choice in this case is this: do you want someone who flippantly talks about people in such a way, but that at the end of the day is going to be isolationist and pull the troops out of actual harm's way over the long term? Or do you want someone to say, "Bravo, we love the troops," and send more in for more pointless wars to get more people killed so that more people lose their legs, and then we all say how wonderful it is for their service?
I don't understand how that is related to what Trump said, though. Obviously,
how it's related is that this is obviously...
now, hold on, because I see what you're saying in regards to the difference between what a president does. I get that. But it's very important, the message that a president sends, not only to Americans, but to the world.
Oh, yeah, Trump's rhetoric is terrible.
And when the president says and undermines the same generals that he appointed, and undermines what they're saying in regards to making them look like warmongers, right, at this point, in his last statements about the military, it's not necessarily what he does, it's what he says and the message that he sends. So how does what you just said right now relate to what Trump said about them being losers, and the fact that John McCain, we shouldn't consider him a hero if he got caught? I like soldiers who don't get caught.
There's a lot of times where people take a personal attack that Trump has done and assign it to a group. In the case of McCain, he was attacking an individual, and whenever he shouts about a certain individual, regardless of what their status is or what their group identity is, the media has a fun time of saying, "Look, he must hate all black people because he just cursed out a black guy."
No,
so that's always hold on, George, hold on. That's always been the case with him. And another thing he does, so there's a lot of times where he's saying flippant things because he's attacking an individual in the moment. Now, the media says he's attacking groups, but he rarely ever does. If anything, the reason he beat Hillary is because Hillary lumped a bunch of people in as deplorable, and he didn't. So regardless of his personal attacks against individuals, one thing that I think mentally, psychologically happens with him is that people say, well, he never said that about me. I think at this time where it hurts people like Tim is that the accusation is that he said something against a group at large. But it's not completely confirmed. It has been denied, granted by sycophants most likely. The other thing that Trump does do, and I went back to see how he's spoken to the military in the past, he's showed up to cheering crowds of military and done rah-rah speeches. One thing he does do, though, is that he always pitches himself as a salesman. So he'll say things like, we used to be losers and suckers, but now we're not because I'm involved. So he's always selling himself, even though he's currently the president. So the context in this case is kind of interesting. I mean, I would be open to hearing more about how it came about, but obviously he's a little too loose with his tongue as well.
Well, also with the cheering crowds when he goes to military bases, they're supposed to do that. That's their commander in chief.
Okay.
It's a very staged event. You're not going to sit. No one's going to go out there and boo the commander in chief. Believe me, you're going to get written up. You're going to get court-martialed for that stuff if you're at a military base or whatever. So those events, whether it's Republican or Democrat, are very, very staged. You're only going to get people that are there to support them, and everybody there is standing in the background. If it's military, believe me, their uniforms are pressed, and they're going to look as because they're representing the military at that point. So they're not going to do anything that's going to embarrass them or say anything bad or no one's going to stand on their no one's going to put their hands in their pocket or turn their back to them on camera. That's just not going to happen. So that's probably
good point.
That's probably why he gets all the cheering. As far as in this particular case, this is stuff that is leaked out, that he's said to generals, that he said, in private. This wasn't a press conference where he's had a planned speech where he had planned, okay, I'm gonna say this, and this, and I'm gonna egg people on, and this is gonna be just more rhetoric. It's not a planned thing for him. This was stuff that is leaked out, and it was verified. It was verified. Obviously it was first reported in the Atlantic, and then it was verified by a Fox News journalist who found even more stuff about him. So. This goes right along with his character. It goes along with stuff that he said. And this is not an individual that he was attacking. He was attacking, groups as a whole because he didn't want to go to a funeral or he didn't want to go. Right. He's like, why waste my time? It's going to mess up my hair or whatever, So in this particular case, I think he was definitely attacking a group. And there's, been stuff. I think Mary Trump had her book out where I guess there was allegations that one of his sons, I think it was Donald Trump Jr., had expressed an interest in joining the military, and Trump laid in on him, said, if you do, I'll disown you. So this is definitely not out of line with his character, and so I have no reason not to believe that he's said this or that he has contempt towards the military.
Devil's advocate.
Sure.
Does that make him a worse commander in chief than someone who didn't say those things but then put the troops into worse situations over the long course of time?
I'll give Trump credit. He hasn't actually gone out there and initiated wars, because it's like, if you look at Republicans, it's, never met a war they didn't love. They any excuse to go to war, any excuse to go spend money on the military industrial complex, they're all for it. So I'll give Trump credit on that one. But yeah,
It's the devil's choice of Trump. Do you want the nice rhetoric, or do you want the long-term, what he's pitching as long-term success? I mean, you can't have it both ways, because
the military is what it is. It's your big guard dog, and sometimes you got to let it off the chain, and sometimes you have to sit there and send troops into harm's way. And I have no problem with that, as long as it's done, tactically, it's done for purpose. It's not just done to, defend oil or try to, protect the oil reserves of the Bush family. So I have no problem with that. And yeah, presidents have made mistakes. There are presidents that have served. There are presidents who haven't served. Some have done a good job. Some have done a not so great job. So I mean, it's not an easy thing to be the commander in chief. But I mean, I think when he says these things, it definitely undermines his authority. It undermines his character. And I think character does count. Now, here's an interesting.
Did he have one?
Yeah, I know.
This doesn't matter.
And my question is this: is this going to be the equivalent of Grab 'em by the pussy that we had in 2016? Where it doesn't matter. It's shocking at first, and then give it a few months, and then no one gives a shit. And I think with that, that's what's going to end up happening. I hate
And
to
the,
say
and the
it.
reality is that it goes back to, and after hearing you guys go back and forth, it just rings volumes of what one of my biggest gripes with this president is that he's not presidential. In other words, what does that mean in regards to an etiquette of a president? I'm not saying etiquette, trumps, if you will, for lack of better words, trumps, spontaneous situations. I get those, and sometimes you got to step out and you got to check somebody. I get it, But the reality is that there is a certain level of etiquette in regards to how a president is to deliver information to its constituents, the American people. And this president constantly, over and over again, whether it be over Twitter, whether it be in his rallies or in public speeches, he just lacks the presidential etiquette that we have seen in past presidents, wrong or not, even in bad decisions. And that, for me, is hard to deal with when I think that everyone, I don't care if you are a police officer, I don't care if you're a teacher, I don't care if you're an airline stewardess, you need to follow the role of the ones that shoulders that you stood on. You need to make sure that you are following the etiquette of your particular space in your particular field. When you step out of that space and begin to do something different, it takes away from all of those who have come before you. And this president clearly has no regards to anything that has been slightly, even remotely presidential in the 4 years that he's had office.
I didn't know you were so traditional, George.
I'm not.
I kind of like the side of you.
Well, here's the thing.
Maybe you should have the flag behind you next episode.
No, you're not gonna have you're not gonna see no flag behind me, partner. But I will tell you this. Is I appreciate you having a flag, because that tells us where you stand. But for me, I am not a traditionalist. I am a person of etiquette. That's a totally different thing. Tradition and etiquette, totally separate things. Etiquette can change over the years. So can traditions. But when I look at this president, he appears to me like a character. He appears to me like he's something in Hollywood. It's not to be taken seriously. Yep. And thank God for checks and balances. Because as we're having this conversation, the American people are suffering right now, whether it be waiting for the stimulus, whether it be waiting for some kind of, relief, if you will, financially from this horrific thing for the COVID. But while they are arguing and tap dancing and going back and forth about this, the American people are suffering.
I agree.
Okay. All right, that's it. All right, okay.
We could keep going.
What the hell happened? Now somebody's gonna have to edit that out, you guys. Where'd you guys go?
What happened?
Oh, okay. I heard this. I heard this little like you guys were speechless.
Oh no. We're just listening. We're listening to your rant. And that was George's rant of the week.
But what say ye? I mean, am I wrong about the etiquette thing?
Well, okay, I'll give you one. Give you one slightly a tangent counterpoint. John Kelly was the chief of staff, right, Tim, for Trump? That guy, and he didn't like Trump,
right?
I believe that
he's done. He's out of there, though. He's out of there.
No, he's out of there now. But when he was there, he would stress. Just like everyone in Trump's orbit, they're stressed, but he's not. Mm-hmm. And he would hand people a book when they would start working, and allegedly the book was something to do with, yes, the leader's a psychopath, but that's okay. And his argument was that over the course of time, certain great leaders have been slightly psychopathic, and Trump is one of those. Meaning, in his mind, he had to rationalize this by saying that, yes, the approach is so different. Yes, it's because on a personal level, there's something deeply wrong, but that might actually make for great leadership on a macro level. I'm not saying that's the case, that this is some greatest leader of all time. What I'm saying is that Trump's offer has been the current way, has not worked. Let's do it something so different. But by the way, you got to take me with that deal, and I'm an asshole. And that's been the deal the whole time. And it's
Well,
a deal that's hard to swallow because it's a constant series of, come on, Trump, you're the president, what the hell are you doing?
Right.
It's constantly one of those things after the other. But it's been this way for years now.
But Chris, you're selling it, but I'm not buying it, bro.
I'm not the one selling it. I'm just telling you what he's selling.
You know
you're selling it, but I ain't buying it, man. I don't think there should be necessarily a playbook or some kind of manual to this shit, but you can't throw out all of the notes and rewrite your own thing. Not when you're dealing with the American people. It's not fair.
But that was his pitch.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with thinking outside the box. I mean, look at Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs thought differently. Steve Jobs had a different way of doing things. He thought he had a different vision for what the personal computer could be and where it could be at. But you know, there's still etiquette. There's still professionalism, and I think that's where Trump really lacks. I have no problem with him thinking outside the box. I have no problem with him, having a different point of view. But I mean, when he comes on stage and he's so unfucking professional, it's just. You're just like, oh my! How do you take this guy seriously? You can't.
It never bothers me when he does that on home soil, but it does bother me when he does that overseas. I don't know why. I don't know why the distinction is, but it does bother me when he's overseas doing that.
But ironically, the same news feeds go overseas of him being on home soil.
That's true. I don't know why, but the land he's standing on when he acts that way matters to me greatly.
I understand. I hear you. Well, I mean, with that being said. Speaking about the military, I don't know if you guys have realized this, but as we go still into another week of protests and all of these things that's going on up in Kenosha and Minnesota and all of this stuff, we get to this conversation about having to defund the police. It's a conversation that has been brought up, and it kind of goes right along with the understanding of why people are saying that. Now, I am not a proponent of the, defund the police, but I do believe in reform. But I do understand some of the talking points of the, defund the police, because it kind of goes along with the whole reform idea. How do you guys feel about this whole defund the police? And where do you think we're going with that these days?
Well, first of all, it's a terrible name because it's misleading, and it's given rise to people to criticize it, saying that it's what do you mean you're going to defund the police? Try calling 911 and you get and it goes to voicemail, and that's not what it's supposed to be about. And yeah, like I said, I think it's a terrible name. But I guess reallocating funds to better service public safety didn't quite have a catchier ring to it, I guess. So, but the idea is that it's supposed to, instead of putting money into SWAT teams, into tactical gear, into having the police do everything, taking some of that money and putting it more towards services that would better serve the community. Maybe better counseling, counseling, or maybe if it's a loud noise complaint, do we really need to call the cops out there? How about a social worker? How about if you have a naked guy on the street who's yelling and screaming out in Venice? Okay, is bringing a cop out there in full tactical gear, is that going to cause more problems? Let's just get a social worker out there. And I like that idea. The problem is that it's one of those. It's a good intention, but it could have unintended consequences. Where it's like, okay, let's say you have a social worker who gets called out to go to a loud noise complaint. What happens if they get shot? Because you have a drunken house party or whatever, or they get injured. Okay, now do we start? How does the training happen? Do we send social workers out, but they have mace, or they have a gun, or they have whatever? So I think there's some of the details do need to get locked down. I think there's training that needs to happen. But I like the idea of putting more money into certain services instead of putting it all. It doesn't all have to be into the cops. It doesn't have to be into developing more and more SWAT teams. And so yeah, I think it does go towards that police reform that George was talking about. So yeah, I'm all totally in favor of that. But yeah, some of the finer points do need to get worked out. And a bad name.
One of the great things about Tim picking this topic to talk about that is over 2 months old. for today's episode is that we don't have to speculate about what the defund the police might mean. We have some of the on-the-ground results of what defund the police rhetoric in practice looks like. It means that money, which city governments are good at squandering in any direction, now doesn't go to those things which they claim they were going to divert from, and instead they go to little PR things to fluff up certain organizations who might be very angry and demanding things of the city at the moment. It looks like cops standing there as people commit worse and worse on the street behavior because they're afraid to step in and do anything about it. So I do understand the point of redistributing money into health and education, but I'm afraid that the end result of this will not lead to better health and education and will just lead to poorer police work or less police intervention in what are growing tensions on the street.
I agree. If it's not managed well, there could definitely be problems. And I think there was a problem in it was Memphis, I think, where budgets were cut from the police, but instead of taking money from the police and putting it into more social services, it was just cut across the board, and that had a negative effect.
Some of these cities are going bankrupt as well.
Yeah.
So as much as they want to talk about that they have a big pot of money that they're going to redirect, in reality, their pot is just shrinking. And the tax bases are leaving.
Yep. So it's one of those easier said than done. I agree.
Well, here's the thing, and though I would also agree that this is an old topic, but the reality
but it's still relevant. It's still relevant.
But that's my point. You know, when you get to the very essence of what defunding the police is about, it's a very old topic in the Black community, and it breaks down to this: the police are here to protect and serve. Okay. Wait a second. That's what it says on the side of the cars. So you would think then that the Black community would want more police, because that means that they're here to protect and serve the community and protect it. Okay. But the reality is that we don't want more police, because more police in our communities is more stress, because the police are hypersensitive. They become they start looking for things that aren't there, and it becomes to a point where it's over policing. So the answer is not add more police. As a matter of fact, I would tend to say that most Black people, when they call the police, it's a last resort. It's a last resort. We don't want to call the police because we know that we call the police, there's going to be something else other than what the problem is that we're trying to solve. So the answer here, and when we talk about defunding the police, goes back to what Tim had said, and it's something from the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s. Invest in the community. Puts art centers, job programs, put in extracurricular activities put parks, keep the lights on the basketball courts, offer internships, get the community involved in something other than just being in poverty, and letting that be what drives them. Because keep in mind, if I have 100 cookies and I put them in one corner, and I have 2 cookies, and I have put them in one corner, and I put 100 people over on the side where there are 2 cookies, right? And I put 2 people on the side where there is 100 cookies. Where do you think the crime is going to break out? The crime is going to break out where there is not enough to go around. 100 people with 2 cookies. Now we got to figure out how we're going to divide this versus 2 people. So when you talk about
But George,
the police, hold on for a second. Let me finish. When you talk about the police and the view of how police, so certain communities enjoy seeing their police. If you go to West LA, they don't mind. You go to Beverly Hills, they don't mind more police. They're like, yeah, sure. We'll hire some more police, because again, they're going to knock on the door and say to them, is there anything I can do to help? This is the defund police, and it has been around for decades. The same idea. Invest in the community. Take the money out of the police. Stop militarizing the police. Over the last 20 years, the military has given the police departments all of these tanks, all of these rifles,
transports and
transport. All of these things have been given to local police, and what they do is what they train and get themselves. So that's open. So not only are they now police officers, but now they have material. Now they have military. Come on, stop.
I'll give you a little counterpoint to that. I agree that it's a bad look, and they look like Tim's VR Half-Life Combine soldiers. Actually, is what they're starting to look like. But there's a lot that cops used to be able to do that they no longer can. For instance, if they see someone who's in Portland acting as a fool, yelling and spitting in their face during COVID time, they're not allowed to whoop the crap out of them with a baton. Now, I'm not saying I'm for that, but if you
They've
are
never
not
been allowed to do that.
All right, but now there's more repercussions for doing that. I'm not saying that's right, but what I'm saying is if the cops are in a position where, even in the face of blatant aggression and disrespect from someone who's a non-cop, I'm not talking about the black community, I'm just saying in general, now you have these situations where they're not allowed to be let loose, if you will, like the dog on the chain reference. Wouldn't you invest in better armor, knowing that you're just going to stand there and get thrown rocks at and thrown batteries at and thrown water bottles and cans of soups at? Wouldn't you want the nicest helmet? Wouldn't you want shoulder pads if you were going to stand there and be doing crowd dispersion tactics in some of these situations?
You know what I want, Chris? I want a plan for prevention. I don't want that for anybody. How can we prevent that from happening, Chris? That's what I want. I don't want police.
The defund the police group is the one.
Hold on for a second. I don't want police to be in dangerous situations. I don't want rocks to be thrown at police. I want police to go home with their families and be safe. I want every cop to go home with their families and be safe. I want them to have stories of days where they don't have to do anything. This is what I want for the police. And I'm telling you, how do we prevent that from happening? And if we can go back and deal with the prevention of it, then we can demilitarize the police. If they don't need to have these things, then we can deal with the prevention of it. It's the same thing. It's the same thing with the medical field. We don't deal with prevention of disease. We just attack it once we get it. But how do we deal with not getting it?
I agree that the root of a lot of these issues is economic. Because even in the case of, let's take it for one moment out of the black community and into these rioters in the street in Portland who are largely white, you have situations where, in those cases, where you have parents that were working multiple jobs, and the kids were probably unpoliced by their own parents, so they grew up and they're kind of not grown up, and now they're angry because they don't have a lot of opportunity and they just got out of college and COVID hit, and they've also been kind of pampered. But going back to maybe the black community and in general the economic situation, do you think there's something condescending about saying, well, these people have really bad behavior now, but if we just throw a lot of money at it, they'll
I don't believe that's the answer either. I don't believe they're throwing up a whole bunch of money because, one thing is for sure, the black community is in survival mode. And when you're in survival mode, you do survival type tactics. You learn how to move and shake in a certain kind of way to prevent you from not existing. It's survival. So I'm not saying throw a bunch of money at the community. I'm saying let's teach the community how to better budget. Let's teach, and it may seem very primal, but we have to go back. We have to go back because this community, unfortunately, has been sold a bag of beans, that they are supposed to have from slavery become a culture that is going to have to do it on their own.
Well, that was certainly part of the problem, right? Is that at a certain point the cops were completely pulled out of the weren't the black community at one point completely abandoned by having cops not present, and that's what kind of led to the rise of gangs and stuff like that?
No, that's not how it happened. No, that's not true, my friend. That's not
Okay.
true. The gang,
And nobody's saying that we don't want cops. I mean, hell, I mean, I've had to call the cops a few times, you know, and they sat there and they responded and they did it and they did a good job. So I think people do want police, but it's like, it's just, you're right. It's that, George was saying, it's that over policing. It's going to a school and seeing, you know, armed security guards, you know, armed police or metal detectors, you know, like, what does that send what kind of message does that send? You know, so
but no school nurse. I got it.
Right.
That's right. Exactly. Thank you, Chris. Good point. Listen, I'm going to tell you a story. When I was 9 years old, was my first time being handcuffed and put into a police car. I was 9 years old. I was walking with my cousin from the store, and I was walking from my cousin, and unbeknownst to me, you know, I saw the cop, and I saw him go by, and I saw him make a U-turn, which is always a classic sign for, okay, relax.
Right.
Something about to go down. You know, when you see a police car come behind you, slow down and come behind you, or when you see a U-turn, you know to turn your head back, turn your head straight, buckle yourself in, because it's about to go down. Whatever it is, you got your paperwork right. I got my paperwork right. You know, everybody cool. Everybody cool. Let's just get through this. We don't know what's going to happen. So I'm 9 years old. I'm walking down the street from the store. We had just stopped and we got some a soda, and the cops jump out the car and commence to handcuff us both. Right? He handcuffed us both and began to scream at me, "Why did you do that? Why did you do that?" And I was like, "What are you talking about? I didn't do anything." Now I'm 9 years old, right? I didn't do anything. I don't know what you're talking about, right? So my cousin, he's 13 at the time. He's a little older than me, right? He's a little older than me. And so at that point, when we denied we didn't do anything, they put us in the back of the car, right? Now, mind you, I'm handcuffed in the back of a police car at 9 years old, 13-year-old. So at this point, it's funny now, but it's not funny.
Right.
At this time, you know, the cop goes and he does a movement like this. You did this, right? This. Now, I don't even know what that means at 9 years old. I said, what does that mean? I'm green. I'm naive. I'm a young kid. I don't even know how that works in body language.
Right.
And he says to me, "You know what that means?" I said, "No, I don't." Now I'm pleading basically with the police. I don't know what that means. Now my cousin's sitting here and he's saying, "I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. We didn't do it. We saw you go by. What's the problem?" He said, "If I take you to your parents right now, you know, you're going to be in trouble. Tell me that you did it." I said, "I don't know what you're talking about." This thing goes on.
I'd be like, "Take me to my parents."
Now, well, but you don't want to go to your parents because, see, that's the ironic part. Because your fear is you fear your parents more than the police at this age. You think if you can just get out of this police car, and I'll never tell my mother about this. You know what I'm saying? She will never know about this, and I'll be able to sit I'll be able to sit tonight and not get a whipping or a spanking or whatever because I got stopped by the police for no reason. So anyway, this goes on for about 30 minutes. It could have been longer, but I'm a kid, so I'm thinking like, oh my God, I'm in trouble. I'm about to go to jail. I never knew. So eventually, they let us out the car, right? They let us out the car. Now, as we were walking home, my cousin tells me that he did do it.
Oh.
He did do it.
What did he do?
Right?
Flip off? What did he do? Flip off the cops?
He flipped them off.
Oh, okay.
He flipped them off. Now he flipped them off. But the point here is that when I'm in this situation, right, and I'm being pulled over, and when I tell you that the attitude about the police in the black community has been going on for years and years and years. I grew up in an attitude of fuck the police because of how they treated our community, how they treated black men, how they policed us. This is a reality. This stuff is not like, oh, you know, NWA just wanted to make some money off of a song. This wasn't a reality. This is real shit that goes on. And when you look into the black community and you say, oh, wow, this is like, I don't want I can't imagine how you guys have dealt with this kind of policing. Then you understand that when we talk about defunding the police, when we talk about the attitude toward policing toward us, is ingrained in how we speak, how we walk. And I'm not justifying what he did, but I'm saying it's a reason why he did it, because he had been harassed by other police himself. And so when he saw the police, he did what he thought would be just a gesture, and they would just keep going, because that's how he felt about the police at 13 years old in the black community. He had been harassed, and he went on to tell me, of course, other stories. He had been harassed, he had been beaten up, and that was his response when he saw police officers.
George, would you rather be policed by police or by a gang? Because a lot of times when the police fall back from these situations, gangs move in, regardless of the...
No, that's not true. That's not true.
I mean, certain criminal elements move in because power doesn't exist in a vacuum.
No,
like someone's going to be in charge.
Not in the black community. Not in the black community. It didn't happen that way in the black community. It didn't happen that gangs popped up. What happened with the black community in regards to that, which is another whole show, but the whole policing idea, policing came into existence because slaves were free. They were called night watchmen in the beginning. And they would look for and find slaves that were either not being able to take care of themselves and doing crimes in order to feed themselves or feed their families. And that's where you get the whole prison population. You get the ball and chain images that you see of black men on, in the police system, in the jail systems. This is where these images come from. So instead of enslaving them in the South, in order to get free labor, what they did is they put them in jail. It was a whole thing after the 13th Amendment. This is how they controlled. And just to be mindful that the United States today, the United States has 25% of the world's population in prisons.
Yeah. And
we're only 3% of the world's population.
It's slavery by another means.
Listen to that statistic. We're only 3% of the world, but yet we have 25%.
Oh yeah. No, in this regard, I'm completely with you in this regard. In fact, I have an upcoming rant all about it.
But again, that's another whole thing. All I'm saying is defund the police. The whole idea of defunding the police is not new. The idea of investing in the community versus putting more cops on the street. And no, to answer your question, gangs never was about policing. It was never about that. It had nothing to do with policing. Gangs, unfortunately, came as because of the war on drugs, and it came because the first gangs were political parties that were for black people, and those things moved on to something else because of the economics of the community. So
all I'm saying is that in general, if we're gonna have nice intentions about this, but as a result of those nice intentions, the cops feel like they shouldn't do as much or can't do as much, then general criminals, not of black or white or anything, will take advantage of the lack of policing and move in and be a little bolder than they were in the past.
Because that's organized crime.
My neighborhood's getting sketchier.
That's organized crime as well. Yeah, that's organized crime.
It's already pretty sketchy before this.
But guys, defund the police. You're president. This has been a great conversation.
Yep.
What do you got? How do you guys feeling?
Good.
Good. Everybody okay over there?
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, I do actually have some breaking news, breaking American Lunchbox podcast news.
Oh.
What is it, Chris? I can't wait to hear this.
And George, this might be relevant to you.
Oh shit! Oh.
Okay.
Listen, I don't know what he's talking about. I haven't heard anything about this for you all to know. This is not something that's made up. I'm listening. I'm hearing this for the first time as you all are hearing it. Go ahead, Chris. What is the news?
Okay, so as we've butted heads in the past, and you have said the "you people" line to me, I have always defended it by saying that my ancestors did not come to this country until the 20th century. Ellis Island type immigration, blue collar immigration. Well, when my mom was here over the last couple weeks, we started talking about some of the family history, and while that is largely true, it is not 100% true.
Mom
In
gave
fact,
us
one of my great-grandparents was from a family line of Scandinavians who was in this country. The family was in this country as far back as the 1720s. Now, I'm not sure if they were from a northern state or a southern state. But if they were from a southern state, you know what that might mean. So I got to do a little more research. I got to look into it. I would say there might be a 1/8 chance that I do have something to do with this under your confines. But there is still a 0% chance that I will hold any white guilt as I currently do. So I had to break it to you, George, and I'm giving you something to hold against me for the future.
And I got it right here. I'm going to put it right in my pocket. But you continue to enjoy your white privilege. You continue to enjoy your white privilege with no guilt. And that's fine with me, because you are not alone, young man. A lot of your people also in your generation have no guilt about what your ancestors have done. So you go ahead, young man. Enjoy your privilege without guilt. Enjoy your privilege.
Thank you.
Any shout outs for this week, guys? Any shout outs for this week? Who we got on the list for the shout outs? It's quiet over here.
Shout out to the 2 people that commented on our YouTube video. No, I don't want to be your boyfriend. No, I'm not interested in your porn links.
Well, thank you for giving them some free advertising there, Tim.
They've been deleted, so.
What about you, Chris? Any shout outs for this week? What's going on?
Yeah, I'd like to give a shout out to Rick Drazen, my former pro wrestling coach. I'm actually a trained pro wrestler. But I never really pursued it. Just I thought it would be interesting to really learn about it. And surprisingly, the one thing that it really taught me about was like the basis of storytelling. So while I was there trying to be a hotshot at the time, and it's definitely shitting on the fact that this is actually a eulogy, because Rick Jason unfortunately passed away.
Oh.
And he was a great man. He was a bodybuilder back in the time of Arnold Schwarzenegger, and then he became a territory wrestler for the old NWA system, George, which you used to watch on TV.
That's right.
So you might have seen him in your local Maryland territory.
That's right.
Virginia territory. But then he became a trainer, and he had a little talk show where he talked to all sorts of people about health and fitness and working out and wrestling and all sorts of stuff. And even though when I knew him, I was a stubborn young man, he drilled into my head the importance of, in the field of wrestling, not doing too much, keep it to the basics. And even though I didn't pursue that as any potential career, it definitely helped me a lot in the realm of storytelling. So I thank you, Rick. And I'm also inspired by the fact that he never stopped hustling. I'm not saying that it's a bad way, but he never stopped his ambition until the day he died. He kept going, and I would rather do that than retire, I believe. So thank you, Rick, and rest in peace.
Nice.
On that note, we'll dedicate this show to Rick. Episode 8. All right, you guys, thank you so much.
Woo.
We're going to see you guys next time. It's the end of American Lunchbox Podcast. Thank you guys for listening.
Thanks, everyone.
We'll see you next week. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.